received the email on a Tuesday morning in May 2024, exactly 3 weeks before my son's college graduation. I was sitting in my office at the accounting firm where I'd worked for 15 years, drinking bad coffee and reviewing tax returns, when the notification popped up on my screen. The sender was Michael Patterson, my ex-husband, and the subject line read, "Regarding Connor's graduation." I should have known from the formality of it that nothing good was coming. "Laura," it began. No greeting, no warmth. "Connor and I have discussed this, and we feel it would be best if you did not attend his graduation ceremony. Your presence would create unnecessary tension and discomfort. Connor will be focused on celebrating his achievement with people who have supported him throughout his college years. I'm sure you'll understand and respect his wishes. We'll arrange for you to see him privately at another time. Michael." I read it 3 times before my hands started shaking. People who have supported him. As if I hadn't been the one working 2 jobs after the divorce to afford his child support when Michael fell behind. As if I hadn't driven 6 hours each way every parent's weekend his freshman year because I couldn't afford a plane ticket. As if every sacrifice I'd made for the past 23 years had been erased by the narrative Michael and his new wife had been building for the last 5. My name is Laura Patterson, though I'd kept the name after the divorce only because Connor asked me to, and this is the story of how I was uninvited from my own son's graduation, and what happened when I went anyway. The marriage had ended badly. That's what people say when they don't want to go into details, and for a long time, that's how I talked about it too. Michael and I had married young. I was 22, he was 25, and Connor came along a year later. We'd been happy, or I thought we had been. Michael worked in pharmaceutical sales, making good money. I worked part-time as a bookkeeper and took care of Connor. But somewhere around Connor's 10th birthday, Michael started working later and traveling more. Business dinners became weekend conferences. Weekend conferences became weeks away. When Connor was 12, I found the affair. Text messages on Michael's phone from a woman named Diane who worked in his company's corporate office. Texts that made it clear this wasn't new, that it had been going on for over a year. I confronted him. He didn't deny it. Instead, he told me the marriage had been over for years, that we'd just been going through the motions, that he'd found something real with Diane. "What about Connor?" I'd asked. "Connor will be fine. Kids are resilient." We divorced in 2017. I'd hoped it would be amicable. For Connor's sake, we'd share custody. We'd co-parent like adults. But Michael had other plans. He hired an aggressive attorney, claimed I'd been an absent mother too focused on work, suggested I'd been emotionally unstable. None of it was true, but he had money for lawyers and I didn't. The judge gave him primary custody. I got Connor every other weekend and 1 month in the summer. My son, who I'd given birth to, who I'd raised for 12 years, was suddenly a visitor in my life. Michael married Diane 6 months after the divorce was finalized. They bought a house in the suburbs of Columbus, Ohio, a sprawling place with a pool and a 3-car garage. Diane was younger than me by 8 years, polished and perfect, and she immediately positioned herself as Connor's real mother. Not in those words, but in every action. She was the one who showed up to his school events. She was the one who hosted his birthday parties. She was the one who posted photos on Facebook of her family. I moved to a small apartment in downtown Columbus, took a full-time job at Harmon and Associates Accounting, and tried to be present for the limited time I had with my son. But Michael made it difficult. He'd schedule Connor's activities on my weekends and then tell me I was being selfish if I objected. He'd buy Connor expensive things I couldn't afford, and then Connor would come to my apartment and look around with barely concealed disappointment. Dad's house has a game room, Connor said once when he was 14, standing in my cramped living room. And Diane's redecorating my bedroom there. She says I can pick any color I want. That's nice, honey, I'd said, swallowing the hurt. What color are you thinking? Blue, probably. Like navy blue. Diane says it would look mature. He paused. Why is your place so small, Mom? Because this is what I can afford right now. But it's home, right? We're together. He'd shrugged and gone to his room, barely bigger than a closet, to play on his phone. Even then, I'd felt him slipping away. The years passed. Connor grew up. He played basketball, joined the debate team, started dating a girl named Emily. I learned about most of these things through social media because Michael didn't bother keeping me informed. When I'd text Connor to ask about his day, his responses got shorter and shorter. Fine. Good. Busy. When it came time to apply to colleges, Connor chose Ohio State University, right there in Columbus. I'd hoped that having him nearby would mean we could have lunch sometimes, that I could watch him grow into adulthood. Instead, he mostly stayed on campus or went to Michael and Diane's house. I'm just really busy with school, Mom, he'd say when I'd suggest getting together. I'll let you know when I have time. But he had time for Michael, time for Diane. I saw the photos. Connor at Diane's family's lake house. Connor at Michael's company picnic. Connor and Diane volunteering together at a charity event. The knife twisted every time, but I told myself it was temporary. He was young. He was figuring out his life. Eventually, he'd see through Michael's narrative. Eventually, he'd remember who I was. Then came the email about graduation. I stared at it for 20 minutes before I could even formulate a response. My coworker Janet stopped by my office. Laura, you okay? You look like you've seen a ghost. My ex-husband just told me not to come to Connor's college graduation. Janet's mouth fell open. He what? He says it would create tension, that Connor only wants people there who've supported him. My voice cracked. Janet, I'm his mother. I've supported him his whole life. How can he not want me there? What are you going to do? That was the question, wasn't it? What was I going to do? I drafted a response to Michael, deleted it, drafted another, deleted that too. Finally, I called Connor directly. He didn't answer. I left a voicemail. Connor, it's Mom. I got an email from your dad saying you don't want me at your graduation. I really hope that's not true. I love you, honey. I've been looking forward to this for years. Please call me back. He texted 2 hours later. Mom, it's just easier this way. Dad and Diane have been helping me a lot with job applications and grad school stuff. I don't want drama at graduation. Sorry. Sorry, like it was a minor inconvenience, not the destruction of every hope I'd had of being part of this milestone. I called him again. This time he answered, his voice tight and irritated. Mom, I said it in the text. I don't want drama. Connor, what drama? I just want to watch you graduate. I'm your mother. You're always making things about you. Dad said you'd do this. Make what about me? Wanting to be at my son's college graduation? See? You're getting emotional. This is exactly why it's better if you don't come. Diane's parents are coming, and her sister and Dad's parents. It's already going to be crowded. We don't need you there making it awkward." The words hit like a physical blow. We don't need you. Connor, I've been there for you your whole life. I worked 2 jobs to make sure your child support got paid when your father's business was struggling. I drove 6 hours every parent's weekend freshman year. I've never missed a birthday, never missed a chance to tell you I love you. How can you say I'm not needed? Mom, I have to go. I have class. Connor, please. He hung up. I sat in my office and cried for the first time in years. Not quiet tears, but ugly, body-shaking sobs that I couldn't control. Janet found me like that and closed my office door, sat with me until I could breathe again. "What are you going to do?" she asked again. "I don't know," I whispered. "He's my son, Janet. I can't just not be there. But if he really doesn't want me there, what right do I have to force it?" "Every right," Janet said fiercely. "You're his mother. You suffered through a divorce, lost custody, and still showed up for him every chance you got. Don't let your ex-husband and his wife rewrite history." But wasn't that exactly what had happened? They had rewritten history. In Connor's mind, Michael and Diane were the heroes, and I was some peripheral figure who never mattered much. I spent the next week in agony. I debated what to do. Stay home and respect Connor's wishes? Show up anyway and risk making things worse? Try to talk to him again? I tried the last option first. I drove to campus, to Connor's apartment, and knocked on his door. His roommate answered. "Oh, hey, Mrs. Patterson, Connor's not here. He's at his dad's for dinner." Of course he was. I left a note under his door. "Connor, I love you. I'm proud of you. I want to be there for your graduation. Please reconsider." Mom. He never responded. The night before graduation, I made my decision. I'd worked too hard, sacrificed too much, loved him too deeply to let Michael and Diane take this from me. I was going to that graduation. Connor didn't have to acknowledge me. I didn't need to sit with the family, but I was going to be there, in the crowd, watching my son walk across that stage. I bought a ticket through the university's public portal. The ceremony was at Ohio Stadium, with thousands of people attending. I could blend into the crowd. No one had to know I was there. The morning of graduation was bright and warm. Late May sunshine flooding Columbus. I put on the dress I'd bought for the occasion. Navy blue, professional, the kind of thing a proud mother wears, and drove to the stadium. My hands were shaking on the steering wheel. I kept thinking about Connor's face if he saw me, the anger or disappointment or embarrassment. But I kept driving. The stadium was enormous, filled with graduating students and their families. I found a seat in the upper deck, far from the family section, and watched through binoculars as the graduates filed in. I spotted Connor in the sea of caps and gowns, walking with his friends, smiling. He looked so grown up. When had he become a man? The ceremony began. The university president spoke, then the dean. A student gave a speech about new beginnings and bright futures. I barely heard any of it. I was just watching Connor, memorizing the sight of him, knowing this might be the last time I got to be part of something important in his life. Then came the individual college ceremonies. Connor was graduating from the Fisher College of Business. The dean of the college stepped up to the microphone and began calling names. One by one, students crossed the stage, shook hands, received their diplomas. Sarah Montgomery. Applause. James Nelson. More applause. Connor Patterson. I stood up alone in my section, clapping as hard as I could, tears streaming down my face. He walked across the stage, shook the dean's hand, smiled for the photographer. He looked happy. He looked like he'd made it. But then something strange happened. After Connor received his diploma and stepped to the side, the dean didn't call the next name. Instead, he paused and looked down at a card someone had handed him. He frowned slightly, then spoke into the microphone. Before we continue, I have a special announcement. Connor Patterson has requested that we recognize someone in the audience. Connor, if you'd like to say a few words. My heart stopped. Connor walked back to the microphone, looking nervous. He pulled a folded piece of paper from his pocket. This isn't planned, he started, his voice shaky. But I need to say something. For the last few weeks, I've been thinking a lot about who I wanted at this graduation, and I made some really bad choices. I let other people convince me that the person who mattered most shouldn't be here, but she's here anyway, because that's who she is. She's always been here, even when I didn't make it easy. He looked out at the crowd. Mom, I know you're out here somewhere. I know Dad told you not to come, and I went along with it, and I'm so sorry. You deserve better than that. You've always deserved better than how I've treated you the last few years. I got caught up in the wrong things, in people who made me feel like I had to choose sides. But you never made me choose. You just kept loving me, even when I didn't love you back the way I should have. The entire stadium was silent. Thousands of people listening to my son speak about me. I found your note under my door last night, Connor continued. And I stayed up all night thinking about everything you've done for me. The jobs you worked, the drives you made, the times you showed up even when I told you not to. I'm graduating today because of a lot of people, but mostly because of you. And I want everyone here to know that. I want to say thank you, Mom. Thank you for not giving up on me, even when I gave up on you. He paused, looking around the stadium. If you're here, Mom, can you stand up? Please? My hands were shaking so hard I could barely move. Janet, who'd driven up separately and was sitting a few sections over, was waving at me frantically. Stand up, she mouthed. I stood up, slowly, on trembling legs. Connor saw me, even from that distance across that massive stadium. He saw me. He smiled, and it was the smile I remembered from when he was little, before everything got complicated. There she is, he said into the microphone. That's my mom, Laura Patterson. She's the reason I'm here today, and I love her. The stadium erupted in applause, thousands of strangers clapping for me, for a mother who'd been told she wasn't wanted, who'd come anyway. I couldn't see anything through the tears. I just stood there, my hand over my mouth, sobbing, while my son smiled at me from the stage. The ceremony continued, but I didn't hear any of it. I was too busy crying, too busy processing what had just happened. Connor had chosen me. After years of Michael's manipulation, after Diane's influence, after all the times I'd felt erased, my son had chosen me. When the ceremony ended, I made my way down through the crowds, not sure where to go or what to do. Then I saw him, Connor, pushing through the mass of graduates and families, still in his cap and gown, moving toward me. When he reached me, he didn't say anything. He just hugged me, tight and desperate, the way he used to when he was little and had a nightmare. I'm sorry, Mom, he whispered. I'm so sorry. It's okay, I said, holding him. It's okay, honey. I'm just glad you're here. I'm glad you're here. Dad told me. He pulled back, his face twisted with anger and regret. Dad told me you didn't want to come, that you said graduation was just a formality and you didn't see the point. I believed him, Mom. I'm so stupid. You're not stupid. You were caught in the middle. That's on him, not you. Over Connor's shoulder, I saw Michael and Diane standing about 50 feet away. Michael's face was purple with rage. Diane looked shocked. They'd been exposed in front of thousands of people, their narrative shattered. Michael started walking toward us. Connor, what the hell was that? You humiliated us up there. You made it sound like You told me Mom didn't want to come, Connor said, his voice hard. You lied to me. You've been lying to me for years about her, haven't you? Your mother and I have a complicated history. That's not what I asked. Did you lie to me about her? Michael's jaw clenched. I was trying to protect you from what? From having a mother who loves me? From someone who actually shows up instead of just writing checks? Connor shook his head. I'm done, Dad. I'm done letting you control how I see her. And I'm done pretending Diane is my mother when I already have one. Diane's perfect composure cracked. Connor, that's not fair. I've been there for you. You've been there when it was convenient, when it made you look good. Mom was there when it was hard. There's a difference. Michael tried to argue more, but Connor took my hand and led me away, through the crowds, out toward the parking lot. We walked in silence for a while before he spoke again. I've been thinking about a lot of things lately. About how Dad and Diane always made me feel guilty for wanting to see you. About how every time I'd mention you, they'd change the subject or say something subtle to make you sound like you weren't important. I didn't see it happening, but it was. Little by little, they were erasing you. Connor, you don't have to. I do, Mom. I need to say this. Last month, I was going through old boxes in Dad's attic looking for my yearbooks. I found letters you'd written to me, probably 30 of them, that I never saw. Birthday cards, Christmas cards, just thinking of you cards. All from years ago when I was in high school. You kept writing to me and Dad intercepted them. He never gave them to me. I stopped walking. He what? I confronted him about it. He said he was protecting me from your manipulation. He said you were trying to turn me against him. But Mom, I read those letters. They were just love. Just you telling me you were proud of me, that you missed me, that you hoped I was happy. There was nothing manipulative about them. He kept them from me because he wanted me to think you didn't care. The betrayal was so deep, I couldn't even process it. All those letters I'd written, pouring my heart out to my teenage son, hoping they'd bridge the distance between us. And Michael had hidden them, had let me think Connor simply wasn't interested in what I had to say. I'm going to make this right, Connor said. I'm moving out of Ohio. I got accepted to grad school at Northwestern in Chicago. I'm going to start over, away from Dad and Diane. And I want to rebuild things with you, if you'll let me. I know I don't deserve it after how I've treated you, but I'm asking anyway. Of course I'll let you, I said, crying again. Connor, you're my son. I never stopped wanting you in my life. We stood there in the parking lot of Ohio Stadium, my son and I, while the graduation crowds dispersed around us. The sun was high and hot, and everything felt surreal, like I'd stepped into someone else's life. But it was mine. This moment, this reconciliation, this small miracle of my son choosing me, it was mine. The weeks that followed were complicated. Michael tried to smooth things over, but Connor wasn't interested. He moved his things out of Michael's house and stayed with a friend until he left for grad school in August. He and I had lunch every week, sometimes twice a week. talking about everything we'd missed in each other's lives. "Tell me about your divorce from Dad," he said one afternoon at a cafe in Short North. The real story, not his version. So I told him about the affair, about the custody battle, about how hard I'd fought to stay in his life. He listened with his jaw clenched, angry at revelations that reframed his entire childhood. "I wasted so much time believing him," Connor said. "I could have had you this whole time." "You have me now," I told him. "That's what matters." Michael tried to paint me as vindictive, as someone who'd manipulated Connor during a vulnerable moment, but the evidence spoke for itself. The hidden letters, the lies, the systematic effort to erase me from my son's life. Family members who'd always been on Michael's side started asking questions. Diane's perfect facade cracked when people learned she'd participated in keeping Connor from me. I didn't gloat. I didn't seek revenge. I just focused on rebuilding my relationship with my son. In August, I helped Connor move to Chicago. We loaded his car with boxes and bags, drove the 6 hours to his new apartment near Northwestern's campus. It was small, but nice, and I helped him unpack, organize his kitchen, make his bed. "Thanks for helping, Mom," he said when we were done. "For everything." "That's what mothers do," I said. He hugged me goodbye, and when he pulled away, his eyes were wet. "I'm going to do better, I promise. I'm going to be the son you deserved all along." "You already are," I told him. I drove back to Columbus as the sun set over Lake Michigan, feeling something I hadn't felt in years. Hope. Real, tangible hope that my relationship with my son would heal, that the years Michael had stolen from us wouldn't define our future. Connor called me 3 times a week from grad school. We texted daily. He visited for Thanksgiving, and this time he stayed at my apartment, not Michael's house. We cooked dinner together, watched movies, talked late into the night. "This is what I missed," he said. "Just being with you. Just being normal." Christmas, he split his time. A few days with Michael and Diane, then the rest with me. When Michael complained about the division, Connor told him, "You had me for years while you pushed Mom out. Now I'm choosing to balance things. You don't get to complain." In January 2025, Michael sent me an email. "Laura, I think we need to talk. Connor's pulling away from us, and I believe you're encouraging it. This isn't healthy for him." I wrote back, "Michael, Connor is an adult making his own choices. If he's pulling away from you, perhaps consider why. I'm not encouraging anything except honesty. That's something you might try." He didn't respond. By spring, Connor was thriving. His grades were excellent. He made friends. He started dating a woman named Rachel who was kind and smart. He talked about his future with excitement instead of the dull resignation he'd had before. "I think I was depressed for a long time," he told me during one of our phone calls. "Living in Dad's house, following his rules, being who he wanted me to be. I didn't realize how much it was weighing on me until I got away." "I'm just glad you're happy now," I said. "I am. And Mom, thank you for coming to graduation, even when I told you not to. If you hadn't been there, I don't know if I would have had the courage to say what I said. But seeing you there, knowing you came anyway, it made me realize what real love looks like. It's showing up even when you're not wanted, because the other person needs you whether they know it or not." Those words stayed with me. Showing up even when you're not wanted. It was the story of my relationship with Connor for years, and it had finally paid off. In June 2025, a year after graduation, Connor came to visit me in Columbus. We went for dinner at a restaurant downtown, the kind of nice place I could never have afforded when he was younger. We talked about his classes, his research, his plans after grad school. "I've been thinking," he said over dessert, "I want to change my name." I looked up, surprised. "Change it how?" "Right now, I'm Connor Patterson, Dad's last name, but I want to hyphenate it. Connor Patterson Reed. Reed was your maiden name, right?" "Yes," I said quietly. "I want to honor both sides of my family. But more than that, I want people to know I'm your son, that I'm proud to be your son." He smiled. "Is that okay?" I couldn't speak. I just nodded, tears running down my face while my son reached across the table and held my hand. "You saved me, Mom," he said, "from becoming like Dad, from losing myself completely in his world. You saved me by refusing to go away, even when I pushed you out. I'll spend the rest of my life trying to deserve that." "You already do," I whispered, "just by being here, just by being you." We sat there in that restaurant, mother and son, while the evening faded into night outside. The years of pain and separation didn't disappear. They were part of our story now. Scars that would always be there, but they didn't define us anymore. What defined us was this: the choice to keep loving, even when it hurt. The choice to show up, even when you weren't wanted. The choice to believe that the truth would win eventually. And it had. Connor walked me to my car after dinner. The summer air was warm, the streets of Columbus alive with people enjoying the weekend. "I love you, Mom," he said. "I don't say that enough, but I do." "I love you too, honey. So much." I drove home through the quiet streets, past the apartment where I'd lived alone for so many years, waiting for this moment, waiting for my son to come back to me. He had. Not all at once, not perfectly, but genuinely. And that was more than enough. I parked in my spot, walked up to my apartment, and stood at the window looking out at the city lights. Tomorrow, I'd go to work. Tomorrow, life would continue in all its ordinary ways. But tonight, I let myself feel the victory. Not over Michael, not over Diane, but over the narrative that said I didn't matter, that said a mother could be erased from her child's life without consequence. I'd proven that wrong by showing up, by loving unconditionally, by refusing to disappear. My phone buzzed, a text from Connor. "Made it back to my hotel. Thanks for dinner. Thanks for everything. See you soon. Love you." I texted back, "Love you more." And I did. More than he'd ever know, more than I could ever say. The night settled around me, peaceful and complete. This was what winning looked like. Not revenge, not vindication, just love that had survived everything thrown at it. That was enough. That was everything.